Well, then, that was Doctor Who Season 2, Episode 5, The Story and the Engine. I think that's the title of this week's episode, but it was a very, very interesting one. Did I enjoy the episode? Yes. Some of you will be asking, was it right to have a predominantly black cast in an episode of British TV? Now, this is from the author that gave us Dot and Bubble, where we had a predominantly white cast. Now, that was done purposely, and RTD actually said if you didn't notice there was a problem with that, maybe that says something about you. He was trying to make the insinuation and assumption if you didn't notice a problem with a predominant white cast, you must be racist. So, if we didn't notice an issue with a predominant black cast, RTD, would that make us racist? Or if we have a problem with a predominant black cast, does that make us racist? You see, we're overthinking. This is the world we're living in, because when you've got extremists on both the left and the right pulling the rope, and those of us in the middle are just trying to make sense of everything, you have that sense of paranoia. Let's get into the story and the engine. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. You can follow me on X, Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X, on TikTok Mad Mickey's World, and on Snapchat BMouth60 Mick, your host with the most. So welcome to my review of Doctor Who Season 2, Episode 5, The Story and the Engine. I knew I would get that wrong at some part on this review. Well, let's get the elephant out of the room. There was a spectacular cameo in this episode. It was Joe Martin's Fugitive Doctor, which I really love. I've loved Joe as an actor for many, many years. I thought what we saw of her in The Fugitive of the Judoon gave us a lot of promise and a lot of potential. And during that Chibnall era, I expected him to maybe give us a whole Fugitive Doctor flashback episode. That would have been cool, but we didn't get anything. And ultimately, all Joe Martin ended up being in the Chibnall era was a token gesture. And that's a shame, because it's clear she would make a great Doctor. And I want to see a season of Joe Martin's Doctor. That would be absolutely fantastic. But at least RTD gave her that cameo. So it's very, very interesting. If you put Dot and Bubble together and the story and the engine, there is a little arc here for the Doctor. In the Dot and Bubble episode, the Doctor was, let's say, racially kind of abused in a way when the white people wouldn't get in his TARDIS to safety. They'd rather die than get in a black man's TARDIS. Wow. And this was the kind of messaging from the black author. As I say, when you're dealing with extremists, this is the kind of storytelling you're going to get. I'm about looking at the past, educating people, to the past, but moving on, because we can't do anything about the past. All we can do is create a better future. But anyway, I do think he's a good writer. There was some interesting elements to Dot and Bubble last year. I can't remember what I thought of it. I think I was a lot more triggered last year, and during the free not so specials of the 60th anniversary, none of that was bad. Last season wasn't bad, it was mid. The free not so specials of the 60th anniversary weren't bad, but they were mid, and it was all rather disappointing. This season's been a lot better. I don't think this episode was as good as the first 4 episodes, but I certainly still enjoyed it. This episode, in a way, does something that Doctor Who was created to do: educate young people. What's great about this is to have an episode of Doctor Who set in Africa, and you get these African stories. And I think that's great for young kids who live in the UK, live in America, don't know much about Africa, if anything, getting a bit of education. So I thought that was really cool, because Doctor Who was supposed to be an educational show. So do I have a problem with a predominant black cast in an episode of British TV? Well, listen, what the writer and RTD are going to say to you is, well, during Classic Who, the episodes were predominantly white. So we're only kind of leveling up the score. And in a way, I have to agree with that. If I was running Doctor Who, would there be a predominantly white episode? No. Would there be a predominantly black episode? No. People would intermingle together. That's what I'm all about. But we do live in this kind of world of two extremist sides pulling, tugging at the rope. You know, it's a tug of war, and one side pulls, and then you get the YouTube videos from the other side. You know, I saw one person, I think it's Disparu on ex Twitter, and he didn't take too kindly to the predominantly, you know, black episode, calling it racist. Listen, I don't personally have an issue with a predominantly black episode of TV. Now I know that Shooty, when he first got the gig, did want to do an episode set and focused in Africa, and it's good that he got one episode that he wanted to do. What I really like about this episode, it gave Shooty's Doctor, the 15th Doctor, a time to shine. Mostly we didn't see much of Belinda in this episode, in the first quarter, first half of this episode. So it was all about the Doctor. And I do like the whole thing about, you know, this is the first time he's been in a black body. And he's told Belinda how he's been rejected through being black. And when he came to Africa, when he went to that barber shop, he was accepted as one of those people. Now, the Doctor really isn't a black man. He looks like a black man, but he's not actually a black man. He's not actually an African, right? Now, Shooty is from Waranda. Is it Waranda? I don't even know how to say it properly. But yeah, I think that's where he's from, Waranda, yeah? So, how do you say it? I can't even say the bloody country properly. Anyway, God, this is not a very PC review, is it? Sorry, but anyway, yeah. Is it Uganda? He's from Uganda, right? I think that's how you say it. Anyway, yeah. So Shooty wanted to do a predominant, you know, episode, you know, focused in Africa, and he got his wish, and that was pretty cool as far as I'm concerned. So the idea of the episode is that this guy has got them trapped in this barber shop that really isn't a barber shop. It's kind of a spaceship. If you go from the outside, it's still in Africa, but when you're on the inside, it's kind of, you know, it's a spaceship and it's in space. Now the Doctor sees this female bring in some food and he recognises her. And this is where the fugitive Doctor comes in. Because there's elements of this episode that didn't sink in. It takes me a few watches for everything to sink in when I'm watching a film or a TV show, because my mind can drift. That's just my focus. I don't have much focus. That's one crap at reviews. Mick, you should write things down. But that ruins the enjoyment of watching TV and film if you start writing stuff down, right? Anyway, so from what I can gather, she was an orphan. The Doctor gambled her away, or whatever happened when he was the fugitive Doctor, and we see that quick flash of Joe Martin's fugitive Doctor explaining what happened. That she was a fugitive. She didn't have time to save a little girl. Kind of feels bad about it, but so it was great. She's great. I love her costume. They had her in the costume. I love her costume that Chibnall chose for her back in, you know, for the fugitive of the Jadoon. She is a great Doctor. I'd like to see more of her. And, you know, because this was a predominantly black episode of Doctor Who, it was a great place for her to cameo. We had a Mrs. Flood cameo, not as exciting as the other four, because I think, because it was a predominantly black episode, they didn't want to have a white actor take a centre role, because this is how they think at the end of the day. I know how, you know, far left, you know, entertainment think. So they didn't give her much of a cameo. She was in the hospital as part of Belinda's story, but she said a quick hello to Belinda. She's a kind of orderly pushing a trolley. So this is what the Doctor did, because everyone has to take a turn telling their story while they're getting their heads shaved. But as soon as they come off the chair, the hair grows back so they can tell another story and another story. So it was very, very, I thought the premise was very, very interesting. The idea of telling stories and how important telling stories. And it's about the story gods again, the theme of the gods, because this is who the Doctor's going to have to come up against, I think, in the season finale, or the double season finale of Doctor Who, by the way. So I like the idea of stories and stories being powerful. And I thought that was really, really cool. And I enjoyed that element. I think this is, as I say, I think this is a really good writer. There's some people who are going to hate this because it's a predominantly black episode. I know that. These are the kind of things that, don't bother me. Belinda mentioning to the doctor that she used to go, her mum used to take her back to India as a kid on holiday so she could feel connected to India. Now, I'm Anglo-Greek Cypriot. I've mentioned that a few times. We used to come here to Cyprus because I live in Cyprus now, but I was born and I was raised in the UK. And as a teenager for about 3 or 4 years, I lived in, California because my dad had a job in a studio in Hollywood. So, but mainly, I'm from the UK and I was born and bred in the UK. We used to come to Cyprus once a year so we could be reminded of our roots. Now, Belinda says, that she felt part of India when she went there. But with me, when I came here, I was rejected by the Greek Cypriot kids, and in the UK I was called a foreigner and some really nasty names. So I rejected flags and nationalities because no nationality ever accepted me. So I understand where the doctor's coming from in this episode, going into that barber's and feeling like he's accepted because it's difficult for him now that he's black, because some places that he lands, he's rejected as a black man. This is a real thing. These things happen. Racism and bigotry, exist, and in some areas, and let's not get it twisted, there are black communities who reject white people because of the things that ancestral white people have done to black people. It's very, very complicated, and it's beyond my understanding. But as an episode, I don't think the episode was overly political. I mean, they mentioned, the whole thing of, I named it the World Wide Web, and then humanity named something uglier the World Wide Web, and, they're just trolls and they have no power and all that. Again, I don't think that's a problem, because there are people who are bullied by trolls, and these trolls have power over people who are bullied, who feel, weak, and, it depresses them and it hurts them. So I think that's a great message. Again, Disparu on Twitter didn't take kindly to that. And the reason I follow people like Disparu and, Nerdrodic and other people on both sides of the political argument, is because I like a full-rounded, both-sided kind of sides of the argument. Because I am apolitical, I don't have, I'm politically homeless, I don't really believe in the political system anyway. So it's good to listen to all sides. So I'm not taking any side. The side I'm on Doctor Who's side, I'm on Superman's side, I'm on entertainment side, I'm on film side. I'm a fan and a lover of storytelling and entertainment. That's the side that I'm on. And, really, entertainment today is being weaponized between these two sides, and that actually breaks my heart. But I don't think this episode was problematic or anything. I think it was a highly entertaining episode. I thought Ncuti Gatwa gave one of his strongest performances as the Doctor, and he's feeling more and more like the Doctor to me every day. Listen, the Ncuti Gatwa era, RTD2 isn't going to go down as the greatest era of Doctor Who. Neither is the Chibnall and the Jodie Whittaker era, regrettably, because they haven't really done enough work with them. And if Ncuti leaves at the end of this season, or Doctor Who ends, they haven't had the time really to really home in what kind of Doctor he is. He's a very interesting Doctor. It's interesting that he changes his outfits and he has different wigs on. I think that's pretty cool. It's something that hasn't been done before in Doctor Who. So, what I would give this episode as a rating, I think I'd give this episode 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I like the idea of this kind of villain being forgiven at the end. They were hardly going to have a predominantly black episode and have one black guy as the bad guy. Because again, this is how the extreme left view minorities. Minorities are all good. They can never do a bad thing. And it's only straight white males that are the problem. It's not me being toxic. This is how the far left view things. And the far right view things in a much worse way. So this is where we are in the world. But as an episode, as a piece of writing, as a piece of Doctor Who, I really enjoyed it. I was fixated to it for 50 minutes to an hour, however long it was. I wasn't really counting. So, yeah, I would recommend this episode. I am enjoying season 2 of Doctor Who. Next week, I think it's kind of going to be fillery. It's kind of a Eurovision Song Contest, kind of galactic Eurovision Song Contest kind of episode. Ryland's going to guest star and things like that. It'll be fun, but it's a filler, and I don't think we're going to get much out of that episode.